the Kevin Durant to the Golden State Warriors rumors, the speculation, it just won't go away. I've been saying on this show for over a week now since this rumor started that I really think the Golden State Warriors are the most plausible, the most logical destination for him. And I have with me Adam Armbrecht, host of Locked On Nets, to break this down with me. It's a crossover edition of Locked On Warriors and Locked On Nets to determine if this trade's going to happen, if it makes sense. Adam, are you ready to go?
You better believe it.
All right, man. This is Locked On Warriors and Locked On Nets.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors and Locked On Nets your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. You follow Adam Armbrecht, on Twitter at Adam Armbrecht. You can follow me, Cyrus Saatsaz, on Twitter at Dog Surf Roadshow, and you can follow this program on Twitter at Locked On Dubs. Adam, I guess the way we'll run this, our boss Nick Angstad kind of set this format. I'll follow it. I'll ask you questions the first 10 minutes or so. You ask me questions the second 10 minutes, and then we'll riff from there on anything else to talk about. To me, and I've been telling a lot of people this, we were talking before we started recording that you are correct that Dub Nation is not excited about trading for Kevin Durant, which is really weird because I've been taking shots at Durant for years since he left. All I wanted was a reason why, a public reason why. He refuses to acknowledge that. Him and I have gone back and forth a couple times on Twitter regarding it. And it's weird because a lot of Warriors fans will come to me and say, look, man, he contributed so much for those 3 years. Like he was a part of Dub Nation. How could you attack him? And then now those same people are saying we don't want him. I've given up a long time ago in trying to truly read the tea leaves when it comes to Dub Nation. But Joe Lacob loves Kevin Durant. That's his white whale. It killed him when Durant left. And the fact that he's got that 4-year guaranteed deal attached to him, I think makes him that much more lucrative for Joe Lacob. There are reports that Stephen Curry and Durant have spoken and that Stephen Curry endorses the trade, even if he's not pushing for it or advocating for it. It's also reported, not speculative, this is not speculation, these are reports that even Kevin Durant would not be opposed to going back to his former team, the Golden State Warriors. And I guess my first question to you, Adam, because I feel like I'm guessing you've been doing a lot of shows like this where you're talking about where Kevin Durant's going to go. What is your first inkling based on everything you know and everything you've heard and everything you intuitively think in terms of where Kevin Durant will go ultimately?
Yeah, I mean, listen, initially when the trade request was put in, it was outlined and reported the Phoenix Suns, the Miami Heat, right? Those are the two teams, the preferred destinations for Kevin Durant. The drawbacks to that would be that the Nets immediately came out with reports that they didn't have any interest in getting DeAndre Ayton back in a trade. So that started to take that off the table. And then on the Miami Heat side of things, you're not going to want to give up Bam Adebayo, but you kind of need Bam Adebayo to be a part of that. The Brooklyn Nets have Ben Simmons on their roster. The rookie extension now plays a factor. So I think in any of these discussions, the mechanics of where Kevin Durant can actually go and ultimately maybe a third and even a fourth team getting involved to facilitate some of this, I think that becomes a reality. On the Golden State Warriors side of it, listen, it worked obviously really well when he was there. I could make the case that Kevin Durant was with the Warriors and it became touted as Kevin Durant and the Golden State Warriors. And that starts to rub probably all the other guys like Steph Curry and Draymond Green and Klay Thompson, guys that have been there and had won prior to Kevin Durant. That starts to rub them a little bit the wrong way. And Kevin Durant gets rubbed the wrong way in terms of, I want to go build this thing for myself. Because even though they're saying Kevin Durant and the Warriors, they're also saying, well, you came and joined the Warriors, the team that just knocked you out the year prior, right? So he goes to Brooklyn and he has a terrible experience for all intents and purposes. I can see Kevin Durant saying, well, I can go and win very easily with the Golden State Warriors. I know what a good organization they are. I know how well run they are. And arguably now maybe it'd be even easier to join the Warriors and say, they went and won again without me. Like, I just want to be Kevin Durant on Steph Curry's Golden State Warriors, if that's possible. The media is going to take it wherever they want to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can see why it would make sense. You're going to maximize the window for Steph Curry here. You're going to maximize Klay Thompson coming even further back healthy from that injury. He wasn't 100% this past season. So there's a lot of things here that add up and say, hey, this really works. I guess the counterpoint to that would be the Warriors just won. They need not go down this road if they don't want to. They've shown themselves to be a stable organization, an organization that can adapt and can reconfigure around their core. And it really just comes down to how much more dominant do you want to be on paper in this potential window, as opposed to where you'll be standing pat, where I think you're still going to be highly competitive. You're still going to be near the top of the West, but there's a lot of things happening around the Western Conference that I don't think make it a foregone conclusion that Golden State back to the finals this upcoming season is a guarantee.
Yeah, I hear you. And honestly, the moment the Warriors decided not to bring back any of their veterans on their bench, I mean, they let go of 5 of them. You just said bye, and the moment I saw that, I could understand having faith in your young core. I could understand, having seen probably much more than any of us have seen in terms of the behind the scenes footage, in terms of all the observation that goes with that. Lacob and company are insanely high on James Wiseman, maybe rightfully so. I mean, we're starting to see the Summer League stuff. And by the way, for those watching who normally watch Locked On Warriors, Kevin Durant is going to join me tomorrow to really break down the Summer League content, since he's actually one of the play-by-play broadcasters. And again, he covers the Santa Cruz Warriors, so I'm really excited for his Summer League insights. But the moment those youngsters, all those veterans left, to me, the only logical thing that makes sense is Kevin Durant coming back. I don't know if this is something that, again, we never know what's going on behind the scenes. There's always much more. Adam, as a fellow media member, I'm guessing you can attest to this, that we probably report 5% of everything going on in this industry, right? There's so much that you just can't report without burning bridges, without upsetting sources. So there's always chatter and stuff going on. And part of me wonders, did Durant start this sooner? Oh, shoot. I just lost. There's Adam. He's coming right back. Okay. Sorry about that.
Back in. No, go again.
Anyway, just finish up my riff. My point is, I really do think that the moves that the Warriors are making are being set up for Durant to come here. And the trade discussions. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
But so you look at letting veterans go, because I think it's two sides of the coin. Well, you could be clearing some cap space. You have some low-level money invested in younger players. But the other side of it would just be, again, from the outside, this is just the progressive move from the Golden State Warriors. We've seen too often, and even the Brooklyn Nets are actually an example of this. You bring in so much veteran talent because you've compiled all your money into Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, then James Harden, now Ben Simmons. But all these other fringe players, veterans like James Johnson and, even Patty Mills, LaMarcus Aldridge, Blake Griffin, guys that can have good stretches, but ultimately fall off at some point. To me, the league has become the college game into the pros. Now that margin has shrunk a little bit. The NBA ready player is a lot closer now. So I would look at it and say, well, this is the Warriors saying, we believe in the young talent and we want to start to roll this over a little bit. But I can understand, hey, if you clear some money, obviously you start to say, well, where could you spend that? And you start looking at, of course, when the conversation comes to KD.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you on that, but what I see with the Warriors, and a lot of this is what Lacob's been saying publicly. One is he came out and said he doesn't know if they can afford both Wiggins and Jordan Poole's extensions after this year.
Sure.
What that tells me is, okay, so if you don't have the stomach to spend that much money on both those guys, and who knows how much of this is truth and how much of it is just spin, but you're saving money, as weird as it sounds, getting Kevin Durant and paying him for the next 4 years instead of paying both Wiggins and Jordan Poole. Again, Wiggins is going to want the max. Jordan Poole is going to want probably something close to the max. So you're saving money there. And then when you bring Kevin Durant in, you can add those veteran minimums after that, because Kevin Durant draws free agents, man. Like wherever he goes, people want to play with him. He has that LeBron James effect. Stephen Curry doesn't have that effect. It's weird when it comes to free agents. So that's why I see the mapping there. Now, and there was a report that came out this morning. This was from Mike Scotto. He's in your neck of the woods. I don't know how familiar you are with him. He works for Spectrum News in New York. He came out with a report today that said that the Warriors are being reluctant to give up all of their young assets. And when we talk about the young assets, we're referring to Jordan Poole, Jonathan Kuminga, James Wiseman, and Moses Moody. Those are like really the four prizes that the Warriors have. And this is the core that either you can roll with them or you can trade most of them and maybe get Kevin Durant back. And that's what they're playing with. My philosophy is always go with the tried and true versus going with something that may or may not work out, but you don't know for sure. That's just me. That's my philosophy. When we come back, though, I would love to get your insights on those players and whether you think Sean Marks is going to want all of them in order to make this trade, or if there's going to be some leeway. And then obviously you have a lot of questions to ask for me. But first, we got to talk about one of our longtime sponsors, Built Bar. Well, do you have a favorite flavor of Built Bar, Adam?
Oh, well, the new puffs. I mean, that's where it's at, right? The puffs are just that marshmallowy protein
Yes.
pack. I don't care what they're coated in. So listen, birthday cake, good one too. Celebration every day.
The birthday cake one actually feels like you're cheating because one of the really big appeals of, and I don't know how it works, where the birthday cake flavor is actually relatively healthy for you. It's incredible. I've signed up for I'm all in on the granola. Have you had that one yet?
Yes, that's not. Listen, that's a whole new wave coming in from Built Bar. They don't stop. Yeah, those are great too.
They are amazing. That's what I'm rolling with now, is just because they're not quite as chewy as the other ones. There's one flavor, I think it's like chocolate peanut butter. I'm all in. I'm ordering those things on the reg. And one thing I love about Built Bars is for someone like me who is officially wants to shed about 10, 15 pounds in my life, like if you get the munchies or if you get that late night craving, you could just eat one of those things. And on average, they have 17 grams of protein. So that protein is not only good for you, but it's also making you feel full, despite only consuming on average 130 calories per bar. And you're only getting on average just 4 grams of sugar. And sugar is a toxin, folks. It's why you're fat. It's why you have health problems. It always starts with sugar, almost always anyways. And Built Bars are low on that. And the protein that they have in them is collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently, and it provides a ton of health benefits. Eat something that tastes good and is good for you. Go to Built.com right now. Use the promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off your order. Again, the promo code is LOCK15 for 15% off your order at Built.com. You can follow Adam Armbrecht on Twitter at Adam Armbrecht. You can follow me, Cyrus Saatsaz, at DogSurfRoadshow. I'm sure when you read my name, Adam, you can understand why my Twitter account is not my name. So I guess first things first, and then just to finish up what I was saying a second ago, or that thought, does Sean Marks need all those players to pull this trade off? And the players, again, Jordan Poole, Jonathan Kuminga, James Wiseman, Moses Moody. That is that young core of the Golden State Warriors that they hope to build on someday. In order for this trade to happen, does it have to be all of them? Is there flexibility? What do you think, and what do you know?
Yeah, I listen, we've heard these conversations around the Toronto Raptors being the example, right? The Nets would want Scotty Barnes, and Toronto would never want to give him up, just 20 years old. And then it's,
right.
Well, you can hear the fan bases say, well, it's got to be Scotty Barnes, and it's got to be OG, and it's got to be Trent Jr., and it's got to be 4 or 5 picks. And all these conversations now, which makes it a little bit unique from, say, maybe the Golden State Warriors and some other teams, is, well, what is Kevin Durant going to then? And I know, Nets fans will say, well, what do we care what he's going to? But everybody cares. Kevin Durant cares. The Toronto Raptors care. So
right. Is
a team constructed in Toronto of Kevin Durant, Van Fleet, Siakam, Birch, and Boucher, is that a championship caliber contending team, or is it a team that's deep in the playoff run and getting into 7-game battles with some of the teams in the East? And that's fine. But I think, again, you're going to look at it and go, well, we don't want to give up what would be the future of our team down the road. Now, again, push comes to shove, you have to pull the trigger on it. When we talk about the Warriors, I think you look at Wiggins and you say, well, there's going to be 1 year left. Confirmed. But is he on a rookie extension, though?
Wiggins is, so you'd have to move Simmons.
So that's the first hurdle right there, right? Wiggins is on a rookie extension. So now the mechanics of trading Kevin Durant to Golden State also involves the Nets making a decision around Ben Simmons, unless you're going to go the other way with it and say, now we can get into all these young players, right? Is it enough to say, we'll take Kuminga and Wiseman and Moody, and we'll also take Poole? We're going to take all 4 of those guys, and then we're going to look into what you have from a pick standpoint, which isn't a lot necessarily on the Warriors side of things. You can't get anything from them. You can get 2026, 2028 first-round picks because you need to go alternating there. So you can throw in a couple of picks, and you can try to finagle that a little bit. But I don't know if, because inside of that core, who's proven inside of that? You want to look at what Poole did over the course of these playoffs, right? And say, hey, this guy has shown up here. Okay, good. You can check that box. Weissman, you're dreaming on what he'll be. Doesn't mean it isn't there, but you're dreaming on that. And so much of what Sean Marks has said is we want a superstar in the making, someone who's proven it, like a Scotty Barnes, right? And we also want another young talent. So those 4 players plus a couple of picks probably doesn't move the needle. Wiggins moves the needle because he's very clearly established, but now the Nets have to turn around and say, let's also give up another big asset here, someone who at this moment is incredibly depreciated in value in Ben Simmons, let alone the fact there might be a world where even after Kyrie is gone and Kevin Durant is gone, Ben Simmons could still be on the Brooklyn Nets because he's just 25, 26 years old. So that's probably the biggest holdup would be that component of it if we're talking about the Golden State Warriors. And if you can get maybe some more picks involved. Here's the other thing that we just talked about too, I will say. Doug and I just talked about it on our show. How the Rudy Gobert trade completely threw the market into array around what it means to trade for Kevin Durant, right? A couple of the stipulations there are you can say they sent back a first rounder in the pick selection, obviously, and then 4 more picks. So it's 5 picks, 5 first round picks, essentially. And then you want to say Vanderbilt is a nice player as well. But so you have to try to equate this, right? Where's the first round value on some of these young players for the Golden State Warriors? How much is it maybe diminished over the first year or two for some of their careers? And then what else would you need to have? So 4 players plus 2 picks, I could look at it and tell you, hey, there's a lot to be intrigued by here. By all indications, Sean Marks is not looking at that and saying that that's enough because there isn't necessarily the established talent like a Wiggins that you could build around.
Well, let's say for the sake of argument, you could figure out the Simmons part. Dude, first of all, do you really think Simmons is part of the long-term future? Because I do not see Ben Simmons staying with the Nets. Do you see that?
I think there's a possibility? Yes. I went back and I said, you want to go tinfoil hat. You could go back to once James Harden said he wanted out, that the Nets organization may have just tentatively in their minds been saying this could be the first step in a series of terrible steps that leads us to the end of this iteration with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, already having reservations around contract negotiations that were going to come this offseason with Kyrie. If that was the case, you're trying to get back something that in theory, Ben Simmons with the right other players with him, he's the perfect piece. He's the perfect complement to a guys that can be scorers. I wouldn't put it at a high percentage, but at the very least, he's going to be here short term. He's under contract. And his value is low right now. So at least for a season, you're going to see a healthy Ben Simmons out there. And then depending on trades that could happen with Kevin Durant, you'll at least get a sample size around what he looks like with a lot of these other talents. So I would say there is still an opportunity for him to be there. And at the very least, you're not just going to jettison him to say, we're going to go get Wiggins and some players here. Throw him to Team X, who, by the way, again, he has sizable money on his contract, and he's also on a rookie extension. So it's not just this 1-2 motion to clear it away.
No, I hear you, man. So I saw a 3-team trade that really rung true to me in terms of pragmatism, in terms of maybe making everyone happy. And the third, and again, this is where you could get creative, but the third team in this instance was the Mavericks. And basically Ben Simmons was shipped to the Mavericks for Tim Hardaway Jr. And which seemed plausible. Tim Hardaway Jr. is no slouch. He's actually a great player who routinely burns the Warriors. So if he leaves the West, I'm happy in that regard. And then on the other side of it, the Mavericks get the defender that they really want because defense has been an issue for them for a long time. And so let's say the 3-team trade could happen. And let's say Simmons is involved in that. So that way that obstacle is removed. My guess is part of the reason why this trade with KD is not happening overnight is because you want someone back who's committed long-term. And so with Wiggins, you'd have to, before the trade is announced, you'd have to figure out those logistics, right? Well, Wiggins signed a long-term extension with the Nets, so the Nets want him long-term. But let's say for the sake of argument, and this is why I think the Warriors are the favorites to land KD is because Joe Lacob loves him, wants him. Joe Lacob retired his number after only 3 years. No one has worn 35 cents and still can't at this moment. So the Lacob thing is vitally important because he calls the shots for the Warriors. And then let's say for the sake of argument, you come up with a trade package that's Wiggins, Jordan Poole, who I do think has tremendous value. I mean, this is a player a lot of people thought was most improved player. He could end up being an all-star caliber point guard for you, if not shooting guard. That NBA Finals experience is invaluable in terms of personal growth. I don't know. I'm trying to be objective in this, looking at this from another team's perspective, and I would love Jordan Poole on my team. I don't like the idea of giving him up, but I'm also thinking of the fact that Joe Lacob does not want to give Poole and Wiggins max dollars. So by doing this, you're getting rid of both those contracts, getting KD's back.
Okay, so let's just pause that there for a second, though.
Yeah.
The Warriors don't want to have to pay Wiggins and Poole max dollars, so you're going to send them to the Nets, who will in turn have to pay them max dollars, right? Like that, I think that's a big part of it too. And I know you mentioned it there. It's like, do the Nets look at a Jordan Poole and say, well, he's a guy we're going to build around going forward, or are we taking a 1-year rental on this player? Likewise with Wiggins. And if that ends up being the case on either one of them, then this is where you come back around to the picks, packages, and everything else, right? So it doesn't mean that they can't happen, but this is, I think, what happens on all sides of these trades. You go, well, here's what the Warriors wouldn't want to have to do a year from now, so let's put them in the package, right? Or
no. But are you concerned? But is your concern Poole's? But is your concern Poole not being with the Nets long term? Because I'm sure he's eligible for the extension now. So I'm saying like that could be also arranged. Like, so if the Nets want that, you could probably get Jordan Poole traded with a contract extension tagged to him, so he's not going anywhere. And the reason why the Warriors don't like it is because they already are giving Stephen Curry nearly $60 million a year. Draymond Green is due for a new contract after this year, and I don't think they want to give him up. Klay Thompson is due for an extension in another year or two, and he's making over $40 million a year. They're in such a deep repeater tax penalty stage. That's why they want to give those up. I don't know if the Nets are in that position necessarily, especially if you give up Kyrie and then whoever you get back could be gone in a year, right? So I don't know if the Nets, do they care about the tax? And regardless, I don't know if that would affect them the way it does the Warriors. You know what I'm saying? Like,
in the short term, it's all kind of a mess. I mean, for the Brooklyn Nets in that regard.
But then talking about the picks, the Warriors, there's only one first round pick they don't have, and that's 2024. So in theory, on top of, let's say like Wiseman, who you're right is improving, that would be like sort of a wild card there. But Jordan Poole, Andrew Wiggins. I don't want the Warriors to give up Kuminga. I love Moody as well, but I think realistically you're probably going to have to throw in at least Moody in there. But let's say that's your core for the players, and then you're adding 2023, 2025, 2027 first. The Warriors can do that. So now you have 3 first-round picks in there. Hell, you could make it 4 if the Warriors are that desperate and want to throw in 2029. But then I would take one of those young players back if it's getting that deep. My point is, based on everything I'm throwing to you there in terms of the players and in terms of the draft picks, who's coming in with a better offer?
Well, but I mean, 2023, you can give 2026 because you don't have 2024, so you have to have the alternating first-round pick.
Right.
So you can only start at
3, 5,
2026.
7.
No,
why can't you do
2020? Because you don't have 2024.
Right. So you do 2023 and then 2025. Does that make sense?
No, but you need to have that. No, because you need to have the one in between. So like you can't go, if you give us 23 and 25, you're not making a pick until 2026 in the first round.
Correct.
So you need to go 2026 and 2028. Those the 2026 the first year you can do it because you'll have 25, you'll give up 26, you'll have 27, and you'll give up 28, and then you'll have 29. Right. So that's the way you could line it. That's the only way that you can line that up, unless you're going to somehow get back a 2024 first round pick, and now you can go 3, 5, 7, and 9, right? Then you can get to that point. Even that being said, though, if you're talking about all the players, I think you're right. Like you do start to say, well, who can we take back off the table? One of the issues you're going to run into here, though, is so this 3-team trade, right? To get Ben Simmons off the Nets to be able to do this. Are the Dallas Mavericks, who are right on the cusp, are they in a position where they say, let's take a flyer on what Ben Simmons could be if he's healthy and back on the court and wants to be a part of this team, versus some type of proven commodity? Now, what else is out there? There's something to be said for that. The Nets taking on Hardaway in the end game, where does he fit into this whole shuffle? It's not to knock this down. I think if you want to give me all of the young talent and Wiggins plus a couple of picks, yeah, I like it. The interesting thing you bring up there is then what is the better offer potentially out there? And we can walk down that road around what some other teams can do, especially when you start to bring in third teams.
Well, okay, yeah, but the Mavericks was just a hypothetical. I'm just spitballing there in terms of the third team. First of all, I'm not following why you don't think the Warriors can give away the draft picks. The Warriors don't need to get anything back. So if they give the Nets
only because you're required to have a first round pick in alternating drafts. You have to have a first round.
No, you're
Yeah,
not.
you can't.
The Lakers don't have a draft pick till 2027 because they just gave all of them away. You can't. You can give them away. You just can't. You can't trade consecutive draft picks. But you don't. There's no rule.
Yes, that's what I mean. Yes.
Yeah, but there's no.
Trading consecutive. Correct.
Yes, but there's no rule for a team having to own draft picks. So the Warriors
so they can
could
line
give
up
up
taking because they're alternating ones. I got you. Yeah,
exactly.
So you have the ability to do it, and I guess correct. And to your point, I don't. You want to go 23, 25, 27, 29, and all the young players and Wiggins. I'm down for it, right? Like if you want to go down that road, and I think philosophically, this is the question you're asking of the Warriors, right? Because you said extensions for Klay Thompson, right? What's going to happen next with Steph Curry, excuse me. In that regard, that's the philosophical question. Are we committed to whatever the best version of this 3 or 4 year window looks like right now? Or are we trying to safeguard against having to do a full reset at some point? Could be 3-4 years from now, but we will have to do that. And I get why you would want to be okay with that, you or anyone in the Warriors organization. And I get why you'd have reservations of saying, we go full pot and Kevin Durant goes down with an injury, or Curry, right? Or Klay Thompson has another injury. Then you don't have that depth backup in behind it.
Well, this leads to the next thing. I think, again, if I'm the Warriors and this report that came again from Mike Scotto, whoever that is, the Warriors likely will not give up all of their young assets. So this is where I think it's going to be either Moody or Kuminga that stays, and that the Warriors will not give up. I think there's going to be one of those two that the Warriors will insist, sorry, we can't give all this up. But I could see them throwing those extra first-round draft picks, especially, and this is my next question, if Seth Curry is involved. I could see the Warriors stomaching giving up Jordan Poole a lot easier if Seth is also included. And is he, what is the Nets' stance on him? Is he available? Do they really like him, or they want to keep him long-term? Or can he be included, do you think?
He's over 30. He's over 30 years old. He's in the last year of a 2-year with a player option, a very favorable number. No, it all makes sense.
Okay.
Even though at a higher price, Joe Harris, who's in the books for $18 million. This process of trading away your stars involves saying everything is available. It's why they went and signed TJ Warren coming off of an injury, right? It's why you grab Sumner and dream on what he can be. There was a confusing moment when they gave a first-round pickup to get Royce O'Neal, in theory, because they were supporting your stars. Now he's going to be here. So, no, I think there's flexibility in that, and that's what is interesting about these. So if you said, hey, and we'd like Seth Curry because he's a great perimeter shooter, the brother connection, all that good stuff, I think that's an easy kind of throw in here because you're turning it over into a bit of a rebuild from the Nets side. And to your point, you want to keep Moody. Again, you want to walk down that path of Jordan Poole, Kuminga, Weissman, and Wiggins, plus some picks, and we're going to throw you back Seth Curry. Yeah, I think the caveat here is, depending on how many players the Nets have on their roster, carrying some of these veteran guys into the season is going to be an opportunity for Sean Marks, the deadline, to say, oh, you need a knockdown perimeter shooter? We have 2 of them on the roster. Let's talk about first-round picks, right? So there's flexibility there, but I don't think there's no one in terms of veteran talent on this team that the Nets would say, oh, no, we couldn't possibly give you player X in order to make this deal happen.
So I guess what I'm saying is if the Nets can find a third team to trade Simmons to and get something back that they'd be happy with, unless you can tell me right now, otherwise, I don't think there's any team out there that can offer better. So again, look, I read that report, for example, that Sean Marks wanted, I think, Anthony Edwards and Cat back for Durant from the T-Wolves, which is, there's no chance in hell that's happening. So, but maybe he's gauging the market. Maybe he's seeing what he can get away with. But yeah, is that a fair statement? Do you think that the Warriors, it's basically in their hands? If they want Kevin Durant, they can have him, and it's just whether or not they want to, how many young assets they want to give up. Is that fair, or do you think there are other teams out there that can come in with a better offer?
Yeah, the Pelicans don't get talked about a ton in this. I think the Ingram and Herb Jones, not taking Zion off the table, I think that Ingram and Herb Jones would be really attractive to the Brooklyn Nets.
Yes.
Again, established young talent, right? So that's probably the difference here. Again, it's the speculative young talent. And then if I even want to go a layer deeper, I think when you talk about the NBA, because we talked about, now Donovan Mitchell is being discussed. Would the Nets maybe be willing to take him back? I don't like him as a cornerstone piece. I don't like guards as your cornerstone piece. I like length, right? So that's maybe why Poole will be a little bit less attractive, but you're getting all this young talent. So the Pelicans in a package like that, I think that's really attractive. You have McCollum there. You still have Zion there. They're ready to make that big leap. Another team, then you go back to Toronto again, Who can offer it? Who's willing? Those are two different things. But Toronto can offer you Scotty Barnes plus OG plus Trent Jr. and some picks. And then you're talking about the Siakam and Van Fleet and Kevin Durant led Toronto Raptors. I think that's on par. You're in those discussions again, established talent, and we've even discussed the world where is Pascal Siakam potentially on the table in one of these trade discussions. If you get back Siakam at 28, you still feel like he's right in his prime. Throw in maybe a Trent Jr., some of these different versions of it. It can become attractive. The Raptors are a little bit hamstrung when it comes to cap room. They can only be an additional $9.9 million in additional cap coming back in. So that's where it gets a little bit weird for them too. And only certain players meet that number. And Scotty Barnes has no financial real value in terms of these trades. So that's right. Interesting. I think teams can get there. It comes down to, does Sean Marks want to be, and I'll offer this wrinkle because Doug pointed this out. Doug Norrie, co-host on the podcast, follow him. He mentioned that we said how the Nets can't afford to lose because they gave all those picks away in Houston. However, in the upcoming 2023 draft, it's a rights for swap to that first round pick. Why that's important is if the Nets are bad and we think the Houston is going to be bad, they can actually afford one bad year. And that can change who you look at in terms of what you want to bring back, which would actually be potentially more favorable for Golden State to say, here's all this young talent. It's not guaranteed to be successful in year one. Okay, we can turn around and still get a pick here, as opposed to really pushing for established talent where we want to come in and be competitive. And you're still going to want that within the year to then devalue all of that capital that is over in the Rockets' hands.
There you go. And I guarantee you Scotty Barnes is not going to be moved. And I just don't think, I could be wrong, but I just don't think Sean Marks.
Let me ask you quickly, is there any comparative player to you in that young core that should be looked at in the same way that Scotty Barnes is being looked at?
Yes. Yeah, Jonathan Kuminga. Jonathan Kuminga.
So then if that's the case, would you say, no, I won't make the trade for Kevin Durant if it involves Kuminga? Like, is he the untouchable? And then we'll offer you everything else, but we won't offer you Kuminga. And Sean Marks says, no, it's the package with Kuminga or it doesn't happen.
I can't. I wish I could read Myers and Lacob's minds. I would not. That would be a deal breaker for me. But I can't read their minds, man. I have no idea. Yeah. That would be for me a deal breaker, but I don't know what they're thinking. All I do know is that Kevin Durant, I've been saying this repeatedly, is Joe Lacob's white whale. It's the old metaphor, the old allegory from Moby Dick. It's who he wants. It broke his heart that Durant left, and just the idea of getting him back. There's a reason why they're making these calls, and there's a reason why these two teams are talking. What is your thoughts? I know we're running out of time here, man. It's rare to get to talk to a Nets person who at least knows the team as well as you do. What are your thoughts on two individuals that always pique my interest with the Nets? One being the general manager, Sean Marks. Like I sometimes wonder, he's very revered and well respected, maybe rightfully so. He's Greg Popovich disciplined, but is he overrated to you? Like, do you like him as your GM? And obviously the bigger one is Kyrie Irving. Are you going to be relieved when he's gone? Because he's just an annoyance to me. I just think as an individual playing in a team sport, he doesn't get it. And some of his acumen based on the comments he's made really just shocks me. I would love your thoughts, man, on those two people.
Yeah, listen, I'll start with Kyrie Irving. We always say this is a guy you'd love to get a drink with because he'll have conversations. Yes. It's all very interesting, right? I could be buddies with Kyrie. It'd be hard to be professionally tied to him, right? So even going back to, we said at the time that they signed him and it meant the footsteps were going to lead to Kevin Durant. I said back then, if I can just get Kevin Durant, that's what I prefer. For all the other reasons, even beyond Kyrie Irving, I like the length. That's the guys that you want on your team. And this history for Kyrie has been a rocky one. Will I be relieved? I think in some regards, listen, the best chance for the Brooklyn Nets to win in the short term is to have Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant stay on this team. But I do think that organizationally, you understand what you tie to. And I think, Steph Curry is a great example of, I'm sure there's the conversations behind the scenes. I'm sure he has an influence, but he's a fairly, low-key management type of superstar. Same thing with Dame Lillard, right? He's clearly pushed for, I want to see this thing turn a corner, but he's been committed for that team for his entire professional career. And they have come up short repeatedly on his behalf. So I think that some personalities just lend themselves better to be the face of a franchise or a key piece to it. So yes, there will be a relief when we move on from this. We get to just talk about the basketball team. On the Sean Marks side of it, it's fascinating. Go back to the beginning of his tenure. What did he do? He came into a team in shambles, took on bloated contracts, flipped players, facilitated the move with the Golden State Warriors. They came in, reclamated D'Angelo Russell under Kenny Atkinson, went and got Joe Harris, who couldn't even crack the rotation apparently for the Cleveland Cavaliers, and yet is one of the best three-point shooters in the game. Likewise for Spencer Dinwiddie. He's a G League player. He comes in, right? Goes and gets Bruce Brown from the Detroit Pistons. He comes in and has success. So I think Sean Marks is and I'm not going to, it's not just him, the scouting department, it's the whole organization. He knows how to fix a bad situation. I think what ends up happening is once you make this commitment to, we're going for the superstars, it changes the dynamic. And
it does.
Right, wrong, or indifferent, this is what it feels like. And all the way up to Joe Tsai, the owner, the Nets are saying, we want to gain back control of this. And we've said the world where you move Kyrie Irving and then see what you can bring back and say, hey, Kevin, just saying, there's some talent still here. Do you want to wait until the regular season to see if we get the right trade for you? And if so, are you willing to not play? Like maybe you entice him back. But I think Sean Marks wants to reestablish the organizational hierarchy. They saw how quickly it can get away from you when you allow, they did it. They allowed the superstars to have control and to dictate terms. So they want to come back to that. I think that his reputation is a little bit marred from a player perspective right now. I don't think any executives or other GMs around the league look at him any differently than they did 5 years ago when he took this role, and we're going to start to see that trend go back in the right direction.
All right, I'll finish on this note. One is, what would you like to see happen with the Nets? And do you have any final questions about the Warriors?
I would like to see, I think I kind of laid it out there. I wouldn't hate seeing Kyrie Irving. I think that relationship is now officially damaged, whether or not that extends to Kevin Durant or not. He's under contract for 4 years. I'd like to see them move Kyrie Irving, try to avoid having it be that they take back Russell Westbrook, obviously, get a third team involved there, and go into this season trying to maintain Kevin Durant, Ben Simmons, and some of the young talent and say, hey, we can still do this here. We can get other players in around you. That's what I would love to see. From a Golden State Warriors perspective, man, how long do you think, say, without Kevin Durant being a part of this, how long do you think that this core can continue to be successful? Because I mentioned at the top, it's fascinating that Klay Thompson was not his full strength yet.
Correct.
I'm curious to see where's the defensive skill? Is it still going to be at its peak? But then Draymond Green, he's your pet monster. If you have him, you love him. If he's on the other team, you're disgusted by him. But he's also, like, his value is going the wrong way here, right? So can they go forward with Wiggins and everybody else and make this thing work and maybe still catch another championship for that core three?
I think I love the pet monster moniker. That's fast. I'm going to laugh about that for a while. It's interesting. Here's what I think. I think if the Warriors had run it back like they originally said they would be the easy favorites to repeat and would have been in a position to go for the three-peat. That's what my greedy ass is hoping for. They decided not to bring back Gary Payton II and pretty much their entire bench. So right now it's a mystery. I don't think anyone can accurately predict what's going to happen with this Golden State Warriors team just because there's no one who can accurately predict how Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, and James Wiseman are going to play. If they play to their potential, the Warriors are set for the next 10, 15 years. That's where they're at. But if these,
even more interesting, because this came to mind, something that Brooklyn Nets fans have talked about so much for the last handful of years and continue right now when they don't like Steve Nash as the head coach, maybe understandably. Why is Mark Jackson not someone that should be coaching an NBA team? Because Nets fans, he's a local guy. He gets talked about with the Knicks job. He was run out of town in Golden State for a very specific reason. Like, it didn't work. And we heard maybe the way some of the practices he had inside the locker room rubbed guys the wrong way. But there's more to it than that. Like, as someone who covered the Warriors, why was Mark Jackson not the right guy to run a high-level franchise?
He's a homophobe, and that was just,
that's going to hurt you.
And that's unacceptable, I think, in any setting. But particularly when you're in a place like San Francisco. But he made a lot of comments in that regard. He's a very religious man. So, and that's where those comments were tied into. Still unexcusable in my book. And then two is he just wasn't great at how can I put it? Like corporate relations. Like he's just not a great company man. Meaning, like he did not have the best open door policy for, let's say, if Joe Lacob wanted to come in and watch a practice, or if Myers wanted to come in and make suggestions about his coaching staff. Mark Jackson did not want to hear it. He wanted to run it his way. That's it. That's really the main reason.
Yeah,
so
you You got to be Greg Popovich or Phil Jackson before you start dictating terms like that to the higher ups in your organization.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
hopefully that sinks into the Nets fan base somewhere for anyone that ever continues to bring his
I
name
really
up.
do think he's a brilliant coach, and Stephen Curry to this day credits him for turning his career around. I mean, Mark Jackson instilled a defensive philosophy to this Warriors team that did not understand how to play defense for 3 decades. So, he was the catalyst for this whole turnaround. But yeah, behind the scenes, there's more to coaching than just actually leading your players. There's a lot to it. There's media relations. There's relationships with all sorts of people, and that side of it, he just didn't excel at. That's the best way I can put it, I guess. But and then the Warriors by relying on this youth. They could repeat, but the youth could also collapse. And then you're looking at yourself going, wow, we gave up all these veterans, took a gamble on a team that could have easily repeated or three-peated as a world champion. And instead now we're not because we didn't want to spend money that we could.
Players don't hit, then you're
exactly. That's what it comes down to. Yeah. And I don't know how Dante DiVincenzo is going to play out. He's great, but he's also injury prone, not the greatest 3-point shooter. So there's just a lot of question marks for a team that didn't need to have question marks. So that's been like the premise of my whole gripes this offseason toward ownership. But again, at the same time, that's why the KD thing seems to make sense. It's because if you make this
clearing
trade,
out the air,
and then you just add a few veteran pieces to back them up, and then you roll from there, and then you have immediate short-term success. Then you worry about the long-term when the long-term comes. But dude, Adam, this was a pleasure, man. I had fun chatting with you, brother. Sorry, went so long, but it was a delight.
Good. Yeah, good talks go long sometimes, man. Appreciate it. Always happy to jump on, and look, I'm sure we'll have more conversations as the speculation continues. It's not going down anytime soon, friend. So we got times to ponder on it.
It's not, man. And it's so weird. And it just sucks because it's holding the whole offseason up. I mean, it's a good thing Summer League is here, but when Summer League is over, if that KD trade doesn't happen soon, people are going to get bored out of their freaking minds. It's crazy. Well, thank you so much for making Locked On Warriors. Oh, sorry, did I interrupt? I'm sorry, man.
No, all good. Yeah, no.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for making Locked On Warriors and Locked On Nets your first listen every day. Anything you want to tease for your upcoming episode? Anything coming up next?
Listen, tomorrow you'll be hearing Doug Norrie on a solo episode breaking down the 3rd Summer League game for the Brooklyn Nets. We've talked about the young players, trying to evaluate if they can be important to this team going forward. So that's the next one we're going to tee up, and then we're going to continue the speculations around the organization right now. Is Steve Nash the right head coach in either scenario to lead this team forward? We'll be breaking that down over the next couple of weeks.
Real quick, do you like him as your head coach? Yes or no? And
I'm indifferent at this point. Like, it's so hard. He hasn't proven anything. I'll put it that way. He has not done anything where you go, oh, we're really excited about this. I think it's fascinating if you strip away the superstars and you say, can you develop young talent? We'll learn pretty fast. But there have been several things that would say you've missed the mark from an X's and O's execution standpoint.
That's very fair to say. And Kevin Durant is going to join me tomorrow to break down, just like same as your show, break down the youth, how the young players are doing in Summer League. And for your second listen, get up to date on the latest news and rumors in the NBA in just 30 minutes every day with Locked On NBA. Locked On NBA, your daily NBA update in just 30 minutes. You can follow Adam Armbrecht on Twitter at Adam Armbrecht. Locked On Nets, I believe, is at Locked On Nets. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. And you can follow me, Cyrus Saatsaz, on Twitter at Dogsurf Roadshow and Locked On Warriors on Twitter at Locked On Dubs. Thank you, man. Adam, it was a pleasure. Thank you, everyone.